Hello, family. My name is James Trice, and I'm the creator of a podcast called YANA, or You Are Not Alone. You Are Not Alone is a podcast for Black men. It is more than just a podcast. It's a lifeline and a brotherhood. We're here to create a supportive, judgment-free space where Black men can have real, open conversations about what truly matters to us, from family and relationships to community, sports, culture, politics, faith, sex, race, education, and the challenges of everyday life. We dive deep into it all. Whether you're looking for advice, motivation, prayer, or just a comfort of knowing you're not walking this journey alone. YANA is here for you. This is your space to connect, grow, and be heard, because none of us are meant to do life alone. Look for new episodes weekly wherever you get your podcasts. And look for me on Instagram at jbtrice123. Welcome to YANA. Grace and peace, everyone. This is James Trice again, your host for YANA. You Are Not Alone. This is a space for Black men to talk uncensored in a judgment-free environment about the issues that matter most to us. This is a space where we as Black men can feel like we are not walking this journey of life alone, because none of us are meant to do life alone. So don't even try it. I want to welcome back to the show Lamont Jackson, and I want to get right into the conversation because he's doing some wonderful, wonderful things, and I want us to talk about them. And so we're going to get right into it. Lamont, welcome to the show again, brother, and talk to the audience about who you are again. For those who have not heard you and seen the other episode that I have of you and Brother James Ware, and I want you to just really introduce yourself again, and let's get right into the conversation.
Yeah, man. Grace and peace to everybody. Like Brother Trice said, my name is Lamont. Thank you for having me, man. Again, it's always a good time that we have fellowshipping with each other. I am in education. Been married for, man, God bless, 11 years. Blended family. We got 5 children collectively. Everybody is an adult. So that's a blessing. We got them to adulthood safely with no criminal convictions. So we thank God for that. No drug addictions, So we thank God for that, man. But yeah, and so entered into education, man, last year, and I was blessed with an opportunity to become a social behavioral educator, it also serves as the title of case manager within a public middle school here in the DFW metropolitan area. So I've been fortunate to serve kids in that capacity for the last year, man, and it's been a mission field. It's been a mission field to say the least. But God is working in and through our public school spaces. So I'm excited about it, and I'm excited about what's to come.
Well, thank you so much, brother. And DFW, Dallas Fort Worth. Am I correct?
Yeah, man. Dallas Fort Worth metropolitan area, home of the great Dallas Cowboys and the Mavericks and the Rangers.
Yeah, I didn't want to get into that. I gotta just say, man, I have boycotted the NFL.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I have not watched an NFL game in my home since they blackballed Colin Kaepernick. I just have not. We can get into this conversation at some other point. I want to invite you back on. Let's talk more about it. But I just think it's a plantation. So I have some serious issues with it. So anyway, let's get right into this discussion about you working in the school system, man, and talk about the kids you're working with, and what what impact do you think you're having on them? So talk about the kids you're working with, what's happening with them, and what impact do you think you're having on those kids?
Yeah, man, good question. So the kids that, of course, I work in a school that is low socioeconomic, a lot of hardships. Some will describe it as a transient community. There's a lot of apartments around, so a lot of instability. Um, but the kids that I work with, man, they have been diagnosed with emotional disabilities, ADHD, and just different challenges to their, overall experience as young people, both in the classroom and in society at large. Um, the the work that I do primarily teaches them, character, um, self-governance, uh, personal accountability, um, and things of that nature. Many of them just come from, and I don't say this in a disrespectful uh, way, but more of a just an honest observation of what I see. Brokenness and dysfunction. Dysfunction that has been normalized. So when you're trying to um, communicate a normal way of conflict resolution or whatnot, it doesn't register a lot of times because that's not what they see at home. I corrected a kid just the other day. I was in the lunch line. He was in the lunch line, and he's cursing everybody out.
Hmm.
And I had to pull him to the side, and you know, was just checking on him,
Mm-hmm.
and I inquired with him. So help me understand where you learned how to talk like that from. And he didn't blink. He was like, my mom and dad talk like that. Now I'm talking about some harsh words. I'm not talking mild profanity. I'm talking about some like he was on a pirate ship or something. Like
Mm.
he using some
A
big words
sailor.
that yeah. Um,
How they say
so
you cussing like a
cuss like
sailor.
a man, and I said, so you learned that in the home. That's how your parents communicate. And he was like, yes. And I said, are you being honest with me? And he was like, yeah. Now I can't verify that. I mean, kids are dishonest, uh, like brutally dishonest sometimes and brutally honest, but we have to navigate through that as adults. And so I can't really say whether or not his parents are cussing to the level that I saw him, but I know he learned it somewhere. And I said, so you know that eventually I'm going to have a discussion about this, and we're going to have to talk about it. So it's those types of situations that I come across: violence, fighting, um, you know, uh, just a lot of them possess a lot of kids that are on my caseload because I have a caseload. They struggle to stay in the classroom setting for a consistent period of time without supports, which means another adult
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
standing in there with them,
Mm-hmm.
making
Mm-hmm.
sure that they behave. And I
Mm-hmm.
just I just think it so much of this points back
Mm-hmm.
to what happens in the home
Mm-hmm.
or what's not happening in the home.
Right. So, wow, what is your caseload and how many of those are black kids? And how
Yeah.
many of those are black boys or girls?
Yeah, I I got about this year, I think I got about 12 that are on my caseload. Um, I got one girl, she's a Hispanic. Um, so the rest are young men, and I would probably say maybe 5 or 6 of them are African American males.
So you got 12 and half of them are African American males. What
Yeah.
what ages are they?
So I work with students between sixth and eighth grade. So they are everywhere between 11 and 14,
Wow.
depending on when their birthday falls.
what behaviors are you seeing? You talked about the language. You talked about the kids
Yeah,
using
man.
this
Um,
foul language. What
yeah.
behaviors are you seeing? And then to what degree are parents are you able to communicate with the parents?
So yeah, man, I'm seeing everything from, and I don't really think the professionals in the medical profession classify this anymore, but oppositional defiance disorder. A lot
Mm,
of the kids on my caseload have um, issues with um, authority. The minute you give them an instruction or a directive, they're refusing. Fortunately for me, all right, so the majority of the behavior that I see resorts from oppositional defiance disorder. A lot of our young brothers just struggle with authority. Um, regarding the parent involvement, it differs. I think the consistency that I see on my caseload with a lot of the brothers, the young brothers that I work with, is the absence of the father. And I think, where when you look at it from the perspective that you and I look at it, that has become common knowledge. That has been one of the known factors when it comes to the behavior of young people. When I get into these meetings or I reach out to parents, there is often no father around.
mm,
And if there is a male around, he usually hasn't been in the mom's life for a long time. So um, he has no influence per se over the child.
mhm, mhm.
Um, and so when you get into that situation and you have a child that struggles with authority, and then you come in and you haven't really, you're dating the mom, but you haven't really established a relationship with the child. And then you try to give directives. This is a problem waiting to manifest. And so I see all of this. And so a lot of times when I go in these meetings, I have to be like a surrogate parent. I have to be an advocate, but I have to, try to position myself as a voice of accountability. But the one thing that I noticed for me is that when I have worked on establishing a relationship with them, that will allow them to see, like, I'm for you, but I'm not just going to let you do everything, then they're more willing to allow themselves to be held accountable, right?
Hmm.
They're willing to admit when I say, no, you were wrong and you should have done it this way, or I'll present it like, okay, I know what you did, but what should you have done? Because again, these are young people who we're trying to, inspire and train and teach to be responsible contributors to society. But a lot of it is the result of just a broken home, broken family systems.
Why did you decide to go this direction with your career? Why did you decide that this is the group you wanted to work with?
Man, I'm spirit led by the Holy Ghost.
Okay,
Um, and I say
talk
that
about
joke.
that.
I say that seriously, but from a jovial perspective. Yeah, man. So went into chaplaincy, um, post seminary, um, and was just praying about next. God, what do you have next for me? What's my next assignment? And God opened this door. And as a result of me coming into this space, there's a natural gifting that He has graced me with for shepherding. Um, and so I realized that. And so I see myself not only as a case manager, but a shepherd of young people
Mm,
to lead
mm.
in a pastoral way, speaking biblical morals, ethics, and values without proselytizing. And I think that's the thing that I learned in chaplaincy. is how do you walk with people and plant seeds? Because what we learn in Western evangelicalism is that everything starts with the gospel, but it might not necessarily be the Romans Road presentation of it. It might
Mm-hmm.
be, how can I plant seeds of kindness, seeds of
Mm-hmm.
love, seeds of grace, seeds of empathy,
Mm-hmm.
and watch what the Holy Spirit is doing. And then maybe
Mm-hmm.
somebody else will come along. And now that soil has been prepared for them to actually hear the gospel. Because the other dynamic that I notice with these young people that I work with is, I would probably say 90 to 100% of them that are on my caseload don't attend worship service on a regular basis.
Okay.
So they don't have a connection with their heavenly father and they don't have a connection with their earthly father.
Hmm. How do the kids come to you? How do you get kids on your quote unquote caseload? How do
Yeah.
they? Yeah. How do you get them? And how long does a kid stay on your caseload?
Yeah, man. So they usually are, um, um, they are, so in Texas, kids have what they call individual education plans.
Hmm.
Some of them will have also what they call BIPs, behavior intervention plans.
Right.
And based on early childhood assessments, if you have an IEP and you have a BIP, right, then we have to serve you, work with you in alignment to what your IEP and your BIP says. So once you have that, if the behaviors are severe, I mean, like turning over desk in, the classes, violence, threats of violence, threats of, terrorist threats, or, trying to do harm to self and others. Those types of kids, consistent fighting, right? Kids that are really quick to just pop off. Those types of kids usually end up with me, right?
Okay.
And I have a system that, was in place before I got into education, a point system. So a child, based on the measures and supports that I give them, can work themselves out, right? But they have to show that they can work themselves back into, the general, not that some of them not are in the general education setting, but they don't need those support minutes. They don't need to be. And so some of them do um, work themselves out of services,
Hmm.
but it pretty much is an ongoing process from what was established, let's say in second, third grade, as early
Hmm.
as second, third grade. And so if me being middle school, if they're still in need of those supports, then middle school, what happens in middle school just translates and so forth. Like I have a kid right now that's getting ready to go from eighth to ninth. And he's going to be, because of just his behavior, he's going to be in a situation to where he doesn't have any out classes. So he's going to stay in an isolated environment for the majority of the day, and then he's going to have to earn his way out of that.
Hmm.
And so a lot of people who don't know, education, they'll probably hear that and be like, "Oh, well, that's not fair." And I understand that because I'm not really a huge fan of that. But when the parents are at wit's end and don't know what to do with them, the state mandates that they are in school because they are school age. And I
Hmm.
think in the state of Texas before 16, the kid is like, you have no choice. So I think at 16, you can choose to say, I'm not going no more. And nobody's going to really make a big deal about it. And I may be wrong on that. But I think, 15 and under, you will get into truancy issues and this and that. So when the state is forcing these laws that force these kids with behavior issues to be in school, and there's really no place for them, right? Because they have all of these personal challenges. But
Hmm.
you can't sit in a gen ed classroom without being disruptive and this and this and that. What do you do? And I think that's the systemic challenge that I wrestle with. Like, how do I navigate through that at the level that I am, to try to help these kids as much as possible? This is not perfect, but you know, it mirrors the prison system.
Well, that's interesting, man, because the next question I have for you, we all hear about this school to prison pipeline,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
our kids are the primary kids that are in the school to prison pipeline.
Hmm.
And so my question to you is, how many white kids are you seeing in the same cycle?
In the
Well, let me
past
ask.
in the past 2 years, I've had one.
Wow. And so, are you in a multicultural school where there's what's the racial breakdown
Yeah,
of the school
so
that you're assigned to?
I would probably say the my school is predominantly Black and Hispanic, and the minority in my school are Caucasian. I would probably
Okay,
say 5 to 7% of the student body is Caucasian.
okay. And you only seen one white kid in the
Yeah,
whole cycle. Okay,
in my case. Now there are other, you know, Caucasian kids that have behavior issues in the school. They're just not as severe, or what will be classified as severe, as the kids that I work with.
wow. So how do they choose? And so when I asked you earlier, I said, how do you
Hmm.
get these kids? Are there other workers like you in the school? And if they
So I,
are, how do
yeah,
you how do they determine to say, hey, look, we're going to give this kid to Lamont Jackson?
yeah. So I am the only one that does what I do. So
And and the
there
school that
in the school.
are
Yep.
you in just one school?
Yeah, I'm in one school. So you have my role at elementary, middle school, and which is where I am, and then you have my role at high school.
Okay.
And so it's man, and I mean, it's the truth. So basically, like, your criminal record follow you. Whatever you do in school, from uh, alternative school placement to in school suspensions to out of school suspensions to fights, it all follows you. There's a record that's
Right.
documented on you. And so if a kid down here transfers from my school and he goes to another school, those records are gonna go with you. So it's not like it's not following you. Your academic records are going to follow you, and your
Right.
behavioral records are accompanied with your academic records.
Right.
And so if they got, 25 referrals on the year at my school, and then all of a sudden this month you transfer, we got 2 months left. This month you transfer, those records are gonna follow you.
So everybody
So,
know when you come in
oh yeah,
as a kid that you got 25 referrals of the
yeah,
school you were at
and
previously.
what they were for, and what they are for. And so, I think, man, again, it goes back to, like, our public schools are a reflection on society at large.
Yes, yes, they are.
And I will say, what I have noticed is that, schools who um, have systems in place, right? Just don't have the issues that other schools have. So I think there's a funding problem, right? Some certain kids just need different levels of supports, right? They're kids and they're products of their environment. And until they're old enough to really understand, and this is the grace that I give them as children, they are reflections of what they see happen in their home, period.
Hmm.
So if mom is throwed off, auntie throwed off, grandmama throwed off, oh, they can't do anything. So this is all learned behavior on top of what they may be wrestling with from a health perspective, speaking about emotional disabilities. You know, a lot of kids that I have ADHD. I don't think ADHD is a contributor to bad behavior. I just don't. Because I got ADHD kids that you got to keep an eye on them. But then I got ADHD kids that they don't have no behavior issues. So ADHD is not the issue. I think other societal factors are contributors. How some of these kids are parented, are not parented. You know what I mean? When I had a parent yesterday, man, and I can speak to it without giving names. So I'm really not bothered by that. There's a situation where three kids jumped one kid, and the parents were more concerned about the discipline that the district implemented or the school implemented in in proximity to what we're allowed to do based on what was done. So you're arguing that the discipline was too harsh, but not to the fact that your son chose to assault somebody, to fight somebody unprovoked.
Hmm.
So you're not dealing with the behavior. You would rather argue, how dare y'all implement that level of discipline? And when you have parents that argue from this perspective, what do you think the child is thinking and saying within themselves?
Right, right, but there is an issue of there's an equity in the distribution of penalties and
Yeah,
punishments, right?
yeah,
And there is, and we have this in our larger society where
hmm,
black people are disproportionately um sentenced or
yeah,
disproportionately punished.
yeah,
And the question is, how severe was the punishment, and does the punishment fit the actual crime or the actual
yeah,
uh you know problem that the kid
hmm.
caused? To what degree have you noticed a disproportionality in the distribution of a punishment,
So
discipline that the kid
in
receives?
in my situation, I haven't really noticed because I work in close proximity to the, principals. The principals are minorities, and the way it's written within our district, you have codes of conduct. You have, all right,
Okay.
if a child does this, then this is the range of discipline that we can do, or whatnot. And so, let's say some things are automatic. Like if a child has a vape, if it's a nicotine vape, then I think that is a certain amount of days in alternative school because it's illegal in the state of Texas for a minor to have it to begin with. So if a child has a vape, there's so many days that they you got to get for that offense, and that's regardless of whatever your racial background is, right? If it's a THC vape, there's a higher penalty for that. So I think people are, in my situation, following the rules. Um, and I can say that the large populace in DFW that I witnessed, and this is, you usually see black and brown people in black and brown schools,
Okay.
right? Now, of course, that's not the case. I am totally in agreement with the um, harsh sentencing for people, minority people groups, that when they get into the judicial system, it totally happens. Um, but in my situation, the thing that I witnessed that challenges me is that And I see it all the time. You want to say, oh, well, my son has a disability, my daughter has a disability, and you want to use that to try to curve accountability and punishment. Because here's the thing, if you don't do something, your same child who is 13, 14, 12, when they get older, they're not going to be protected by the same rules and perspectives.
Right,
So
right,
so if your child um, chooses to get upset and hit somebody with a brick or whatever, just the law doesn't care that they have an emotional disability.
right.
So
Yeah.
so my heart is to try to find that way to, in light of their disability, right? Because if it's an emotional disability, that's a little bit different than ADHD, right? So if it's an emotional disability, if they got something that challenges them from responding to authority and this and that, maybe trauma that they had um, coming up that contributed to the person we experience. I really try to work with them in light of
Hmm.
that reality, but at the same time holding them accountable, being like, hey man, like what I have the luxury to do is say, okay, you had, out of 9 classes total, I think they have 6 on, a given day. We're block scheduling and whatnot. These are the classes you can go out to. And once you show me that you got it, then you can earn the rest of your classes out. So I try to find these ways to hold them
Hmm.
accountable without being too harsh, but without
Right.
just letting it slide under the
Of
rug.
course. No.
And I can't
Yes.
say everybody does that. I can't say everybody does that. And it's so layered, man. It's so layered because it goes from my level all the way up to how things are legislated. How, like when we talk about the funding disparities, right?
Yeah.
Schools in low socioeconomic situations don't get the same fundings as school in other areas.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And
That's
if and
right.
so it's like, there are funding gaps.
Right.
All of this contributes to this stuff because there are kids who need a more structured environment because they don't have the emotional makeup to sit in class for 45 minutes. They just don't. So they may need to be able to get up and take a break every 20 minutes and walk outside. And you might have to teach them differently
Yeah.
until they can mature. But it's kind of, you put some of these kids in a box and you put them, and see this side of it too, you
Mm.
you put them in a situation that, because of who they are, they just can't, they're not put in a position to be successful. And I see that too.
Right. Let me ask you, how long have you been doing this work?
This is my second year, man.
Second year.
Second
What
year.
and it's only been 2 years.
Yeah.
What success have you seen in your 2 years, but also define what success is to you?
Yeah. So like I sorry, but I had a young lady. Um, Man, she was fighting. I mean, fight, fight, fight. Like 2, 3 times a week. She fighting. Last year. This year, she hadn't had one referral. She hadn't
And
had
that's
one
this is somebody you've been working
on
with.
my caseload.
Wow.
I worked with her last year, but I wasn't the primary contributor uh, to her success.
Okay. So it
Family.
took a family. So it took a group of
Family,
folks,
bro.
but you were part
Family.
of that.
I was a
Wow.
part of it. I
Right.
was a supplemental support. Things changed in the family and they challenged her differently. They had different conversations with her, and she saw within herself that she needed to make some changes. And the girl hadn't had one fight this year.
Congratulations, man.
You see what I'm
How
saying?
how old is she?
She's in the eighth grade, so she
Okay,
is. Depending on when her birthday falls. She's between 13 and 14.
13, 14.
Yep.
Wow. We got a few minutes left here, man. The time goes so fast, and uh, there's so much to unpack about what you said
Yeah.
and the work that you're doing, man.
Yeah.
Period. What is your hope for these kids,
Uh,
right? And what do you see
so yeah,
as
man.
as the future for our black kids, boys and girls?
Yeah. I think, and I'm going to present um, a challenge to the church to either establish nonprofits or ministries that can serve these communities. Because if a child is in a abusive situation, if a child is in a um, situation to where they're destitute, if or, or homeless, or there's drug use, how can you expect them to have a robust experience at school when there is no stability? So how do we walk? How do we service the community, the family? So my hope is that partnerships will be established with school districts that could,
Partnerships between what? Between who?
between the families
Hmm.
of these students and the schools, to where there's positive reinforcements. I mean, you have some situations to where there are social workers in the school and social workers help, but we need more. We just need more. um Church has got to come out of four walls. You got to know the people in your community.
Right.
Where I work, there are several churches in close proximity to the school. And the only time I see church people is um, when there's a day of prayer. But what I'm saying is, come up there during lunchtime, pull some of these kids to the side, talk to them.
Is
Uh,
is that is that is that permissible?
yeah,
Is
if they
the
if they
school
if
open
they
to
if
that?
they yeah if they reach out and they go through the vetting process, they can
Okay.
absolutely come in there to check in at the front desk. There are teachers on staff that can be ambassadors of sorts to that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think that needs to happen more. I think not just from a church perspective, but from a community perspective. If there's a nonprofit that you know provides food, provides housing assistance, provide these things, you know.
So you're saying build relationships with the
Oh
whole
man,
family, get
oh
involved with
yeah,
the whole family,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Because that
And
all that contributes to the learning experience. If the child is, man, I've had situations. One of the kids come, really smart kid, and I really was fond of this kid, but he had a lot of issues, and many would label him as bad. But when you listen to him, kid had a lot of stuff going on. His mama was unhoused. They staying with relatives, sleeping on the couch. You see what I'm saying? And
yes,
so
yeah,
how you think he gonna act when he come to school?
that's right.
He has
The
no
inst
stability.
That's right. The instability of the family and
You
not
see what
knowing
I'm
where his
saying?
next meal is coming from or where he's gonna sleep at
Man,
the next day.
man.
Wow,
He got so
wow,
much going on, and so to expect him to stay in a 45 to 90-minute class, I think that's
yeah,
just an unrealistic
it
expectation
is. It
when
is.
life is kicking him in the face. And kids in other school districts that are better served, they typically don't have that problem. And if they do, there are resources provided for them, I would believe, that would allow them to have a better experience. So if we don't deal with the people,
Right.
then the situation in the school, the test scores, all of that, it's still going to be a challenge, man. And that's just
Okay.
what I believe from being boots on the ground and seeing.
Wow. what do you see as the future for Black people, given what you've seen in the work that you're doing, and then seen in society, period? What do you see as the future for Black people, period? As a
Man,
Black man, from a Black male perspective.
yeah. I want, if we do not begin to lovingly hold ourselves accountable, and allow ourselves to be held accountable, then it's just going to be the same cycle that we have seen. We can't expect the political party to come save us. It takes individuals who have obtained a level of success, whatever success looks like, kind of the each one teach one type of deal, to be willing to establish relationships, to begin to partner with organizations that are in the community and giving resources that can lift these people up. But if we don't, man, and we continue to fall victim to, what I would consider, for lack of a better term, erroneous, reckless living,
Mm,
then things will, I don't see them progressively getting worse, but I don't see them progressively getting better from a communal standpoint of view.
mm,
You know what I mean? We
yeah.
can't continue to make excuses and be the victim. We can't
Mm,
do that. We just can't do it. So the scripture speaks to the principle, my people perish for lack of knowledge.
right.
I believe that's a natural knowledge and a spiritual knowledge.
Hmm.
And so the first thing is think, people have to understand, man, that they have value, and that if you are in a what I would consider a lower state of existence, which means you're not living up to your potential, then you got to begin to have those hard conversations. Why am I not living up to my potential? Why am I not doing the things that, what's challenging me from doing something different to get different results? So my hope for the community is that we'll get out of this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this victim mindset, to where we're always looking for something external other than God to come save us, but God is internal, right?
Mm,
And to understand that we are more than conquerors, we are victors and not victims, and just why am I here, right? Not this person. That there are things systematically that are put in place that challenge us in a unique manner that I will not deny. But God is bigger than that. And we play a part, I think, a lot of times, from what I've witnessed, in our own destruction.
hmm. Oh, wow. We are right at time here, man. And what you ended with, what you just said there is a conversation for another day. We need to come back and unpack that. How are we participants in our own destruction in a system
Yeah,
that's built on, and its core was to subjugate, to oppress,
yeah,
to
yeah,
marginalize, right? To
yeah,
dehumanize who we are.
yeah,
How do we play a role in that? And that's a
yeah,
question that we need to ask. I think we need to
yeah,
start with in the next conversation.
yeah,
How are we playing that role?
yeah,
Because there's a lot to unpack there.
yeah, yeah.
But in closing, let me say this: you said a lot, and I appreciate you doing the work you do, man. Thank you so much. And how you, you do believe and you do understand, and this is what I believe about what's happening in the work that you're doing. You are, I think, planting trees of which you will probably never be able to sit
Amen.
up
Yeah,
under.
yeah,
Do you follow what I'm saying?
yeah.
When you talked earlier about planting seeds. The
Mm-hmm.
seeds that you're planting will grow into
Mm-hmm.
trees inequities
Hmm.
that you will probably never sit up under.
Right.
You
Right.
probably never see
Right.
the fullness of the kids that you're working with
Yeah.
because, their life, right? How they, what I'm getting at, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they would grow into fine young men, fine
Yeah.
young ladies
Yeah.
who would be productive
Yeah.
citizens, and not just productive citizens. I want to start with just be know who they are
Yeah.
and be comfortable with who they are, and will pursue the dreams that they have, and
Yeah.
will believe that they can accomplish whatever they want to accomplish, regardless of what the
Yeah.
system says or what the system does.
Right.
And the
Right.
position you're in is
Yeah.
doing that work. You're stepping in, and
Yeah.
so I want to thank you for doing that. But
Man.
I need you to come back so we can unpack a lot more of what a lot of what you said.
Yeah, man.
Let's go back into because there's a lot to this,
Yeah.
and this is some hard work. So I want to thank you for that.
Yeah.
Before we close, though, I do want to to ask you one last question.
Yeah.
Tell us what Coram Deo is. Coram
Yeah,
Deo.
man.
Am I saying it correctly?
Yeah, Karam Deo. Karam
Coram
Deo.
Deo.
So, so several years ago, I forget what I was reading, but I came across the term. Coram Deo is a Latin phrase that literally translates to mean before the face of God or in the presence of God. And within Christian theology, it presents the principle of living one's entire life in the conscious awareness of God's presence under his authority and for his glory.
Mm,
So that's what Karam Deo means. And so it struck with me. I saw it um, as a reminder of just my role as a believer in Christ. And so it's just something that helps me stay on the journey, man.
wow. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Man,
Audience,
and I
go
just
ahead.
want to ask that people watching, man, pray for our youth. Um, there is an assignment that God has on them, but there is an assignment that the enemy has on them also. And I see it, and they don't know who they are, and the enemy wants to prevent them from coming into an awareness of who God is and who He says they are. And so let's just keep them lifted in prayer and keep the families that they are attached to in prayer also, that they will come to the fullness of knowing God and our Messiah, Jesus.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you again, audience, for joining this episode of Yana. You are not alone. Again, I'm your host, James Trice. And remember, until next time, um, we're not meant to do life alone. Grace and peace, everyone. Until next time, see you soon.
YANA is here for you. This is your space to connect, grow, and be heard because none of us are meant to do life alone.